Facebook notification revealed my wife's 5-year affair and led me to confront the cheating truth. It was just another typical evening. I was sitting on the couch, scrolling through my phone after a long day at work. As I casually checked Facebook, a notification popped up, one of those random birthday reminders, nothing out of the ordinary. But as my thumb swiped past it, my eyes caught something unexpected. A message. A message from a man I had never seen before, but the words stung like nothing else I had ever felt. It was addressed to my wife. The message was innocent enough, but what stood out was a comment about how great it was to be with her again, and how he couldn't wait to see her soon. My heart raced. My stomach dropped. It wasn't just a random message. It was the start of a shocking revelation that would turn my life upside down. My wife, the woman I thought I knew, the mother of my children, had been hiding a secret for 5 long years, one that would destroy everything I thought was true. And this was just the beginning. My wife and I had been married for over a decade, and I always thought we had a solid relationship. We had built a life together, 2 kids, a nice house, and everything that most people would envy. Our marriage wasn't perfect, but we had been through the ups and downs that come with any long-term relationship. We had a system, a routine that worked for us. It wasn't always passionate or exciting, but it was steady and reliable, and that was enough for me. I trusted her completely. She was my partner, the one person I relied on more than anyone else. So when I saw that notification on my phone, it felt like my world had just shattered in a single moment. The message, from this unknown man, immediately brought a rush of emotions: confusion, disbelief, anger, and fear. My mind raced, but my first instinct was to dismiss it. It had to be a misunderstanding, right? Maybe it was a friend or a colleague who had gotten too comfortable with their words. But the more I thought about it, the more that nagging feeling grew. Why would someone say something like that if there wasn't something more going on? I decided to confront her, but I knew it wasn't going to be easy. My wife was a woman of few words when it came to personal matters, especially anything remotely related to our marriage. So I braced myself for what was to come. But as I gathered my thoughts, I couldn't shake the thought that this wasn't just a small issue, it was something much larger. If this man was talking like this, then there had to be more. I needed to know the truth, no matter how painful it was going to be. Little did I know, this message was only the tip of the iceberg. The days that followed were filled with a constant internal struggle. I didn't want to believe it, but every moment I thought about that message, the more the pieces of the puzzle seemed to fall into place. Something was off. But what could I do? How could I even begin to confront her about something as serious as infidelity? And if I did, what would happen to everything we had built together? I had always prided myself on trusting her, on believing in the life we had created. But now, that trust felt like it was slipping away, and I was left grappling with the uncertainty of what would come next. For as long as I could remember, my wife and I had been inseparable. We met in college, and it felt like destiny. We clicked instantly, and from that moment on, I could not imagine my life without her. Our relationship was built on shared experiences, mutual respect, and a deep understanding of one another. We had been through so much together, supporting each other through school, careers, buying our first house, and starting a family. Those were the memories that I held on to tightly. To me, they defined us as a couple. Our life was predictable. We were in our 30s, and things had settled into a routine that felt comfortable, even peaceful. We had our kids to focus on, both of us working hard to provide for the family and build our future. Sure, like any couple, there were moments of tension or disagreements, but they always passed. We always found our way back to each other, no matter how small the bumps were. And during those times, I never once thought about the possibility of betrayal. The idea seemed so foreign, so out of the realm of possibility, that it never even crossed my mind. But when I reflected on the past few months, I realized that something had shifted. I didn't know what it was at first, but there was a subtle change in the air. She seemed distant at times, like her mind wasn't entirely present when we were together. Little things would come up, texts or phone calls that she was quick to dismiss, moments where she seemed distracted or preoccupied. At first, I brushed it off, telling myself I was just overthinking. After all, we were busy with life, and stress can affect people in strange ways. But as time passed, it became harder to ignore the signs. I started to feel like there was more happening beneath the surface, something I couldn't explain. And now, as I stared at that notification on my phone, those subtle signs began to make sense. This wasn't just my imagination playing tricks on me. This was real. She had been hiding something, and that something was about to unravel everything I thought I knew about my wife. I could not shake the sinking feeling in my stomach. I wanted to confront her, to demand the truth, but how could I? How could I ask her something so direct, knowing that it would completely change the dynamic of our marriage forever? But the nagging doubt wouldn't go away. I needed answers, and I had to prepare myself for whatever was coming next, no matter how devastating it was. I spent the next few hours pacing around the house, unable to shake the feeling that I was on the edge of something I wasn't ready to face. Every time I picked up my phone to check that Facebook notification, my hands trembled slightly. I knew it was only a matter of time before I had to dive into what felt like a nightmare I never expected to wake up to. The sinking feeling in my stomach kept growing stronger, but I couldn't ignore it. This wasn't a coincidence. I was staring at proof of something I had been blind to for far too long. The message on Facebook was clear, a notification from a man named James. I didn't recognize the name at first, but something about it felt off. The brief message under his name was innocuous enough. "Hey, just checking in. Hope all is well with you." It was casual, but there was an intensity behind it that made me pause. I clicked on the notification, almost reluctantly, and what I saw made my blood run cold. There, on the screen, was a thread of messages between my wife and this man. The conversation was flirty, full of inside jokes, references to private moments, and a level of intimacy that was impossible to ignore. I felt my heart pounding in my chest as I scrolled through the messages. He called her sweet names, things I had always reserved for her, and she responded in kind, almost playfully. This wasn't just a casual exchange, it was the kind of exchange that suggested something far deeper was happening. As I read through more of the conversation, I found myself frozen in disbelief. It wasn't just that they had been in contact, the messages indicated they had been involved for years. There were plans to meet up, references to trips they'd taken together, and inside conversations that only two people who shared a close, personal bond would have. I felt sick to my stomach. All the little signs that I had ignored, all the doubts that I had pushed away, everything suddenly made sense. I read the messages, one after another, unable to look away. The messages spanned over 5 years, detailing their affair. The more I read, the angrier I became. My wife had been lying to me for years. How could she betray me like this? How could she have kept something so monumental hidden from me all this time? But the worst part came when I saw the photos. There were several pictures attached to the thread. Pictures of my wife, smiling and laughing, in places I knew she had never been with me. She was in someone else's arms, someone I didn't know. Her face was filled with joy, a joy that I had never seen when she was with me. I felt my heart shatter. How long had this been going on? How long had she been living a double life, hiding this secret from me? The truth was too painful to process. I wanted to scream, to throw my phone against the wall, to make the world stop spinning. But I couldn't. I just sat there, staring at the screen, feeling numb. The weight of the betrayal felt suffocating, and for the first time in years, I questioned everything I had known about my marriage. I tried to make sense of it all. I had been a good husband. I had supported her, loved her unconditionally, and put her needs before mine. But none of that seemed to matter now. The years of trust one thought we had built were nothing more than a facade. I wasn't just hurt, I was devastated. The woman I had trusted with my heart, the woman I had built my life with, had been deceiving me for half of our marriage. As I continued to read through the messages, I saw more and more signs that this affair was not just a fling. They had planned trips together, had shared personal moments that were meant for only the two of us. I even saw a message about her meeting him in the city, where she claimed to be working late on a project. I had believed her every time, trusting her when she said she was busy or needed time for herself. But now, I realized, she had been spending that time with him. I knew I had to confront her. The question was no longer if I would confront her, but when. I could feel the anger rising within me. I was hurt, but more than anything, I was furious. I needed answers. I needed to understand why she had done this. I needed to know how long it had been going on and what she had been thinking throughout all of it. I could feel the weight of the situation pressing down on me. This wasn't something I could ignore, something I could just sweep under the rug. The truth was right in front of me, and I couldn't pretend it didn't exist anymore. As I scrolled through the messages one last time, I saw the name James once again. The name that had changed everything. The man who had stolen my wife's love and shattered everything we had built. I couldn't sit there any longer. I needed to confront her. But I didn't know how to do it. I didn't know how to start the conversation, how to ask her the questions that burned inside of me. How could I look her in the eye after everything I had just discovered? How could I trust her again after reading those messages, after seeing the evidence of her betrayal? The world around me felt surreal. I was living in a nightmare, and I didn't know how to wake up from it. The confrontation came sooner than I had anticipated. I had spent the entire night wrestling with my thoughts, trying to figure out how to approach my wife. What words could I say that would make sense of the chaos in my mind? How could I possibly communicate the pain and anger I was feeling without losing myself in a torrent of emotion? When she walked in the door that evening, I could feel my heart pounding in my chest. She greeted me as usual, with a kiss on the cheek and a tired smile. I forced myself to smile back, but inside, I was a storm of confusion, hurt, and rage. I knew I couldn't hold it in any longer. I had to ask the question that had been eating at me all day. Without preamble, I looked her in the eyes. "Who is James?" Her expression shifted instantly. The smile faltered. Her eyes widened, just for a second, but I caught it. She knew exactly who I was talking about. I could feel my pulse quicken as I watched her face change from a carefree expression to something more guarded, more defensive. She didn't answer immediately, as if trying to decide whether to lie or tell the truth. But I was done with lies. I had already seen the truth in black and white on my phone. There was no more room for deception. I had read the messages. I had seen the photos. I knew everything. "James is just a friend," she said, her voice shaky, but she did not meet my eyes. My anger flared up instantly. "A friend? A friend that you've been having an affair with for 5 years." I could feel my hands trembling, but I kept my voice steady, demanding the truth. "Don't lie to me. I saw everything." Her face drained of color. It was like the life drained out of her in an instant. I could see the guilt in her eyes, the way her lips quivered as if she were about to say something, but the words were stuck. She tried to reach for me, but I stepped back, not willing to allow her any closeness. She had no right to touch me now. She had no right to comfort me after what she had done. "It's not what you think," she began, her voice breaking. I never meant to hurt you. It just happened. I couldn't believe my ears. After 5 years, she was telling me it just happened? The anger inside me exploded, and I could no longer keep my calm. The lies, the betrayal, the manipulation, it all came rushing to the surface. I had to fight to keep my voice steady as I spoke. You've been lying to me for years. You've been sneaking behind my back with someone else, and you expect me to believe it was some sort of accident? How do you think that makes me feel? My voice was rising now, but I didn't care. Do you know what it's like to be blindsided like this? To have the entire foundation of your life crumble in a single moment. She was silent for a long time, looking down at her feet, avoiding eye contact. I could see the tears welling up in her eyes, but they did nothing to soften the anger that burned within me. She had made her choice. She had chosen him over me, over everything we had built. I could no longer feel pity for her. When she finally spoke again, her voice was barely above a whisper. I never wanted to hurt you. I never wanted any of this to happen. I didn't say anything at first. I just stood there, staring at her, waiting for more, waiting for the truth. The more I thought about everything she had said, the more it became clear that she had been living in her own world. She hadn't been thinking about me, about us, about the years we'd spent together. She had been thinking only about herself, about her desires, and about keeping up the lie. It was all selfish, and I couldn't respect that. You were willing to throw away everything we had for a few stolen moments with him? Was that really worth it? I asked, my voice quieter now but still full of pain. She flinched, but I saw a flash of something in her eyes, a mix of guilt and regret, but also defensiveness. She didn't want to admit it. She didn't want to fully face the consequences of her actions. I don't know what happened, she said, almost pleading. I got caught up in something, and I made mistakes. I never meant for it to go this far. Her words stung like salt in an open wound. This wasn't an apology. It wasn't an admission of guilt, it was an attempt to rationalize her actions, to make herself feel less guilty for the years of deception. I had given her my trust, my love, and she had betrayed me. There was no excuse for that. There was no way to make it okay. The conversation dragged on for what felt like hours. I kept asking her questions, each one more painful than the last, each one exposing the lies she had buried deep within her. But no matter how much she tried to explain herself, it didn't change what I knew. I had the evidence. I had seen the proof. And nothing she said could undo the damage she had done. I can't do this anymore, I finally said, my voice cracking. I can't be with someone who doesn't respect me, who doesn't value our relationship enough to be honest with me. You broke me. She reached out to me again, this time more desperate, but I pulled away. Please, she whispered. Please don't leave me. I'm so sorry. But it was too late. The trust was gone. The love had been twisted and manipulated beyond repair. I could feel it slipping away, like sand through my fingers. And no amount of apologies would bring it back. The days following the confrontation were the longest and most painful of my life. I had been living in a nightmare, one I never thought I would wake up from. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her with him. I saw the years of trust one had given her shattered in an instant. The weight of the betrayal hung over me, suffocating me with each passing hour. She begged me to stay, to try and work through things. She said she would do anything to fix what she had broken, but deep down, I knew it was too late. Trust, once shattered, could never be fully repaired. The bond we had built together for years had been destroyed by one act of selfishness, and I couldn't ignore the truth that I had been living a lie. I spent the first few days in a daze, unsure of what to do. My world had been turned upside down, and I was left to pick up the pieces. The house, once a place of comfort and love, now felt like a prison. Everywhere I looked, I was reminded of the life we had shared. Everything felt tainted, poisoned by her lies. I moved into a temporary apartment, away from her, away from the memories. I needed space. I needed time to heal, though I wasn't sure if I ever would. The pain of knowing she had been with someone else for 5 years was unbearable. What was worse was knowing that she had lied to me, looked me in the eyes every day, and pretended like everything was fine. I was angry. I was hurt. But most of all, I was disappointed. I had loved her with everything I had. I had given her my trust, my heart, and she had thrown it all away without a second thought. There were moments when I questioned myself, wondering if I had missed the signs, if there had been something I could have done to prevent this. But deep down, I knew the fault lay entirely with her. She reached out constantly, calling, texting, and even showing up at my apartment. She said she was sorry, that she never meant for things to end like this, that she wanted to make it right. But her apologies felt empty. They felt hollow and self-serving. She wasn't apologizing because she understood the magnitude of what she had done. She was apologizing because she didn't want to lose me. I stopped responding. I ignored her messages and avoided her attempts to contact me. I needed to heal. I needed to find myself again. I needed to get back to who I was before she had taken it all from me. But even as I tried to move on, the memories of her haunted me. The small things that used to bring me comfort now reminded me of her lies. The smell of her perfume, the way she used to laugh, the quiet moments we shared, they were all gone. I couldn't escape it. The ghost of our life together lingered, refusing to let me go. I started seeing a therapist. I needed someone to talk to, someone who could help me process the pain and betrayal I was feeling. It wasn't easy, but it was necessary. The therapy helped me understand that my emotions were valid. That the anger, the sadness, the grief, It was all a part of healing. I learned that I was not to blame for what had happened. She had made her choices, and I was not responsible for them. Months passed. I began to rebuild my life, piece by piece. I started focusing on my career, my friendships, and my well-being. I took up new hobbies, things I had forgotten about when I was with her. Slowly, I started to feel like myself again, though the scar of what had happened would never fully fade. And then, out of nowhere, I received a message from her. It had been weeks since I had heard from her. I had moved on, or so I thought. She told me that she regretted everything. That she was seeking therapy, that she was working on herself, and that she understood why I couldn't be with her anymore. It was the first time I had heard her speak of the affair in such an honest, vulnerable way. I didn't know how to feel. Part of me wanted to reach out, to comfort her, but I knew I couldn't. I had already given her my forgiveness once. Now, it was time for me to forgive myself. I had to let go of the past and focus on the future. I didn't respond to her message. I couldn't. It wasn't that I didn't care, it was just that I had already moved on. I had found my own peace, my own healing, and I wasn't going to allow her to disrupt that again. And so, I closed that chapter of my life. I let go of the woman I had loved. I let go of the life we had built together, and I walked away, not out of anger, but out of self-respect. She had betrayed me, but I was not going to let that define me. I was stronger than her lies, stronger than her affair. I had rebuilt myself from the wreckage she had caused, and I was moving forward. It was not an easy road, but I emerged from the wreckage of my broken marriage stronger than I ever thought possible. The pain of betrayal will always be a part of me, but I refused to let it define who I was. I learned that my self-worth was never tied to someone else's actions. The healing process was long, but I found peace in the decision to move on and to rebuild my life. While I never received the closure I expected, I found closure within myself. I no longer needed her apology to heal, and I no longer needed her in my life to feel complete. I became the person I always was beneath the hurt, a stronger, more resilient version of myself. If you are going through a similar situation, know that it is okay to hurt, it is okay to grieve, but do not let the actions of others dictate who you are. You have the power to rise above, to heal, and to become stronger than ever before. Thank you for watching this story. If you found this video meaningful, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and press the bell icon so you never miss an update.